Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So hello, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Brown Eyes, and I graduated last fall with an MPH from Benedictine and also a specialization certification in epidemiology. So you can go to the next slide. Okay, perfect. Okay, so my current title is Senior Research Associate in the Real World and Late Phase Department at Syneos Health. Specifically, I work more with real world evidence. So that's a mouthful. So for those of you that do not know, real world evidence is considered the bridge between clinical trials and commercialization. So basically drugs, drug devices, things like that, once they finish the clinical trials and are either approved or they're on the market, they still need ongoing studies. And so that's where real world studies come into play. So my job is to assist with various research projects, specifically time and motion studies. Those are the most prominent studies that are coming up on my schedule right now. In addition, I also do some consulting work where I give podcast interviews on various public health topics. I've done data analysis and interpretation, and then I've assisted with disease investigations for both private and non-private companies. Currently, I'm on a project with the CDC Foundation, providing assistance to a county near Austin, Texas on disease investigations. I found my current position on LinkedIn, and what I'm going to do is on the next slide, I'll give you some tips because I think it's kind of intimidating and a little confusing sometimes when you're searching for jobs, especially in this field. And so I put LinkedIn and Indeed because for job searches, I feel like in my opinion and experience, those are the main two giant search platforms. So LinkedIn has the ability to create followers and network, but some employers still will only post on Indeed. So I do think it's worthwhile to try both simultaneously while you're looking for a job. And so for LinkedIn, what I highly recommend is to create job notifications using keywords. And so what I did and what I still do is epidemiology, epidemiologists, or public health, or if you're more interested in health education, you can do that as well. And what I love about LinkedIn is you can make it location specific. So if you only want to do remote, you put in remote and it'll only show you remote options. If you want to do your home city, you could do that. Or if you want to move, you can look in advance at other locations. So that's really nice. One tip I have on LinkedIn that I found at least is just maintain an active profile with a professional looking profile picture. And the reason I did that in quotes is professional picture doesn't mean you have to go out and spend hundreds to get it done. Mine was taken by my 11-year-old in my backyard. So just get creative, just make sure it has a picture because profiles that don't have a picture tend to not get as many followers and, you know, people are searching for you. So just have some type of professional looking picture. And then, I mean, if you can be active on it, create meaningful public health related posts or just share them. I know that seems kind of like a pain, but I've noticed that when I share posts and add a little input, just like a, you know, little tiny blurb of my own, I'll get a lot of feedback and I've gotten a lot of networking that way as well. And also one thing I've noticed too is if you find a company that you're interested in, maybe you're interested in the company, but you're not finding anything on LinkedIn or Indeed that you like, go to their specific website because they don't always post all the jobs on those websites, or I'm sorry, on LinkedIn or Indeed, because that's actually how I found this. My position was they hadn't posted it on LinkedIn or Indeed, but I was looking at Syneos Health and I happened to get ahead of when they posted it on LinkedIn. So I was ahead of the curve basically. Keep your profile up to date with your job descriptions. Obviously, I just copy and paste from my resume, so you could do that. It's pretty easy. And then don't be afraid to connect with other public health professionals. I was really intimidated when I first started on LinkedIn because I felt weird, you know, asking people to join my network, but it's there for a reason. So don't feel weird, you know, asking other people to join your network. And for Indeed, it's very similar. You can create the same type of job notifications. And then on Indeed, just make sure you keep your resume up to date because employers do go on there and sometimes they will reach out. I've had that happen before. And if your resume is not up to date, you might get missed. My biggest piece of advice for applying for jobs is don't be afraid to apply for jobs that seem out of your element. So one thing that was a really good piece of advice that my aunt actually gave me was that job descriptions are a wish list, but it's not a have to have. And so just because you don't meet every single checkpoint doesn't mean that that job is not for you. So ignore your imposter syndrome. If you feel like you are at all qualified for it, apply for it. You never know. The worst that happens is they say no. The best that happens is you get your dream job, which is basically what happened to me with this position. So Okay, so I overall, I enjoyed my MPH program. I found that it's helped me in my career exponentially. I enjoyed the entire experience. So I had a very good experience. In particular, these 5 classes I felt were the most helpful. So epidemiology, advanced research methods, advanced epidemiology, applied linear models, and then my internship. So for the epidemiology class, that was the intro one. It gave me the foundation for everything I needed for my career. So I was really lucky to have Dr. Chin, and she was excellent. She was so good at explaining everything. So it was a really nice foundation. I wasn't confused at all. Everything just came very easy after she explained everything. And it was funny because I actually originally thought I was going to go into more of the health education, but after her class, I found I was much more interested in epidemiology, and I'm very grateful for that because I really love it. Advanced research methods taught us how to do literature reviews and went into great review about epidemiological research, which I still find helpful today with my current position. And one of the things that the professor provided was a template for literature reviews, and I still use it now, even in my current job, and I've shared it with others because it's just such a nice, clean Excel sheet. And so that's a nice tool that I'm glad that I can still utilize. For advanced epidemiology, that went into detail about like data sources, psychometrics, things like that. And I still use that today in my current position. Applied linear models was fantastic. That allowed for me to apply what I learned in biostatistics to statistical software, which is really, really important. It gave me also direct experience with working the programming, which is really, really important. And I'll explain that more in a couple of slides as to why I think that's important. So I was able to use SPSS, R, and SAS while in the program. And I also just had an amazing instructor. So that was an excellent class. And then finally, my internship provided me with so many amazing experiences that led me to my current position. I can't say enough positive things about my internship experience. So I was on a program evaluation project here at Benedictine University with Dr. Bagat. And during my internship, I was able to lead focus groups. I assisted with creating a qualitative script. I did in-depth quantitative and qualitative data analysis. And I was able to test out a hypothesis using statistical software. And actually earlier today, I co-moderated a qualitative interview for a study, and I felt confident and comfortable doing that thanks to my experience with my internship. So it was overall extremely helpful, and I'm very grateful for my experience with my internship. So in regards to my experience with health inequities, my current position doesn't technically really apply, but I actually have only been there for about a month. So my previous position, I was working as an epidemiologist at Brazoria County Health Department, which is a relatively smaller county in Texas, right outside of Houston. And I served as the lead epidemiologist for viral hepatitis, zoonosis, and COVID-19. In particular, I worked there during the Delta and Omicron wave, which, as I'm sure many of you know, it was pretty terrible here in Texas. We got hit pretty bad. One of the things I did was provide health education during disease investigations. Many of the individuals there lacked adequate health insurance, were of lower socioeconomic status, and pretty much lacked any type of health education whatsoever. In particular, I saw a lot of health inequities with hepatitis C positive patients. So the state of Texas does not investigate or track chronic hepatitis C. They only do acute cases, which are very hard to identify just because of the symptomology. And so a lot of times we would get chronic cases, but people couldn't get treatment because of lack of insurance, or they had insurance, but the cost was still just too high. And then, like I said, a lot of the gaps were individuals not having health care, and that affected all of viral hepatitis, zoonosis, and COVID. And then one particular experience that I'll never forget that was very sombering was I had to lead an outbreak investigation at a women's shelter. They had a COVID-19 outbreak. It was at a shelter for sex trafficking survivors. They would take them in, and the whole facility just came down with COVID during Delta. So I had to facilitate and monitor that outbreak, which was sombering. It was something I'll never forget. So that was another health inequity experience I had. So my advice, so if you're interested in epidemiology or biostatistics, my biggest piece of advice is to take as many biostatistics electives as you possibly can. I took one. I wish I had been able to take a few more, but you run out of time, things happen, the more exposure to different software systems, the better, in my opinion, because when I got on the job market, I found that many places wanted you to have at least some familiarity with SAS, a little bit with R, but mostly SAS. And so I was able to use my experience with my internship and with my class. But if you don't have any experience in class, that's going to be a little bit more difficult and it might limit where you're able to work. And so I just recommend, if you can, take those electives. If you can't, if you're already ending, or maybe you want to take something else, that's fine. There's free YouTube tutorials, there's Coursera, things like that. I just recommend getting some experience. I think that would make it easier when you're on the job market. Another piece of advice is to advocate for yourself. So if you have questions about the program, reach out to someone. I think I personally had a good experience with people responding right away, but if someone's not responding right away, send another message, call, everyone's there to help you. And then if you need a mentor, if you're confused about what to do, with a certain class or what to do after you graduate, reach out. I feel like most of the alumni is willing to talk because we all know what it's like and we're all in this together. So feel free to reach out and never be afraid to ask. I mean, the worst thing they do is say no and you move on. And then, like I said before, never be afraid to apply for a job, even if you don't fit the bill 100%. The worst case scenario is they say no and you maybe wasted 5 to 10 minutes, but in the best case scenario is you get a great, amazing job. So just never be afraid to apply for a job. And my final piece of advice is more specific for health education, or if you're doing like disease investigations, case investigations, things like that. Just make sure to remain non-judgmental. And the reason I say that is my specialty is more viral hepatitis. I'm really passionate about it. I find it very interesting. However, if some of you don't know, there's 5 types. 3 of the types are bloodborne, and 2 of those types are spread through intravenous drug use or high-risk sex practices. And so a lot of times people tend to get a little judgmental. I've heard public health professionals get a little judgmental. We need to not do that. Just there's no reason. My favorite saying is that pathogens are here to do 2 things: to invade and propagate. And yes, those people may be exposing themselves a little bit more, but sometimes things just happen, and judging doesn't do anything. And when you judge and try to give health education, it tends to put up a wall, and those walls are, it can create generations of mistrust. And so just be nice, be non-judgmental, and just think of it from a scientific standpoint. So that's my advice. And you can add me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. I really, really loved everything that you said. Extremely helpful tips that you gave to all of us. As a reminder, if you guys have any questions, you can add them in the chat, and we will have the live Q&A after everyone has given their presentations. So we are going to move along to the next presentation. And I invite Maya to share a little bit of advice about her public health journey.
Awesome. Good evening, everybody. I hope everyone is doing great this evening. My name is Maya Moore. I actually graduated from BenU December 2020, and it has been an amazing journey thus far, and I'm glad to be here to share with you all. All right, so just to give you guys an overview, I'm going to be discussing my current career and tips for an effective job search, MPH course, tips and certifications, my BenU experience geared toward my career, my career in relation to the mental health during COVID-19, and also advice on starting a career in public health. All right, so I am currently a first lieutenant in the United States Air Force. I'm active duty. And so within the public health era in the Air Force, we focus on force management and communicable health. Those are basically the 2 branches within the Air Force. Force health management focuses on deployment health. So we basically help those who are deploying, who are in processing and out processing. We make sure that they have the correct immunization that they need. especially if you're going to Japan or Korea, some immunization you may need. Also, we focus on occupational health, which basically focuses on the employees that work in the Air Force, making sure that there are no hazards, they're not exposed to any hazards. One program in particular we focus on is the fetal protection program. And basically those women who are pregnant, we actually collaborate with bioenvironmental. And when we collaborate with them, we basically make sure that wherever they work, that they're not exposed to any hazards of some sort like that. One of our biggest programs too, under the Force Health Management Program, is the Hearing Conservation Program. This program basically tests everyone that's on base, everyone that's in the Air Force, military too. They're supposed to have an annual hearing test, and this program is especially important for pilots, because obviously pilots have to be able to hear instruction and guidance whenever they're flying, so that the mission can be successful. When it comes to the communicable health side of things, we also focus on programs such as tuberculosis. We focus on the sexually transmitted infection program. We also focus on foodborne illnesses, and we also focus on animal bites as well. Currently, I am stationed at Shepherd Air Force Base, Texas. So we collaborate with Wichita County and their health department, and we also help assist them in the emergency disasters of preparedness. For example, I know Texas is big on hurricanes, and I know we haven't had a hurricane in Wichita County in a little minute. We've had some that actually were close, but there has been one that hit before, which is very big and impacted a lot of people, community and families as well. So we collaborate with them to help them with that as well. As far as COVID-19 within the Air Force, of course, like COVID-19 has been crazy, of course, as everyone knows, but definitely within the Air Force, we have been conducting a lot of contact tracing, contact investigation, and also following trends as well when it comes to that thus far in the Air Force. All right, so tips for an effective job search. Update your resume. I know for me, I'm not really big on doing the best job with my resume. So I actually hired a professional to help me with that. And she did amazing. And I think that if you're not the best at maybe organization or how it should look, and even if you don't have the experience or what you think should go on your resume, depending on what job you're applying for, then you should definitely invest in that. Networking is so important. For example, I know I did network with some of my colleagues, but also during my internship, I was actually able to work in my community, focusing on the fitness program as well, which is something I'm very passionate about, and just health education. And so networking with your community during your internship is definitely a great opportunity to get connected and find the actual job you would want. And the last one is get out of your comfort zone. I think that a lot of, I know for me, I've kind of always wanted to accept the risk and just go for it and challenge myself. So getting out of my comfort zone wasn't really an issue for me, but I do know that when I applied for this position as a public health officer, keep in mind, I am prior reserves, Air Force Reserves, 5 years. I was enlisted. So this job was definitely very competitive, I would say. I went up against people, who had doctorate degrees, people who have probably been in the field longer than me. And I think honestly, just me being well-rounded on the civilian side, but also having prior military experience working in entomology, which is the study of insects, helped me tremendously. So with me knowing, the odds and knowing how competitive being an Air Force officer in general is, and then going to apply for a public health officer, I was going up against people, like I said, that were had an amazing, astounding background. But I didn't let that deter me. This is a goal of mine for the past 3 to 5 years, and I've been working, towards this goal for a long time. So get out of your comfort zone, apply for the job. If you meet the minimum qualifications, then I say go for it, because honestly, you're not gonna know everything on the job when you get there. And sometimes you might, and sometimes that's what some jobs are looking for. But I always see that as an opportunity for growth. And when you're uncomfortable and when you don't know something, that leaves an opportunity for you to ask questions, and it leaves opportunity for growth and room for growth. All right, so MPH course tips and certifications. I would definitely say organization. Organization is very important. That helped me tremendously because if you're not organized, you won't really know what you need to focus on, what you need to look at, what questions you need to ask in particular. And so asking questions in general when it comes to your career and honestly in life, period, should definitely be at the top of your list because there are going to be a lot of things, especially in the Air Force. Being an officer, you're only given a certain amount of information. So as an officer, we're taught to problem solve and to think critically. And sometimes you're not gonna have all the pieces of information. So that means you have to pull together your team, ask questions, know your team, skill sets, all those great things to basically utilize everyone, including yourself, to make sure that the mission is accomplished. Collaborate with colleagues, that's what I did. I remember when I was going through my program, it was definitely, a great experience. I found out that I was pregnant when I actually started the program. So one of my toughest courses, I think, was biostatistics, and it wasn't even really tough. I made all A's on my classes, but being that, numbers are just not my greatest thing, and crazy thing is I'm actually doing it now in the Air Force. So for example, just like I said, I mean, if it's something you're not strong at, try to get better at it, push yourself to do that. So collaborating with my colleagues when I was, going through, I was pregnant and everything, especially when I was 7 months pregnant, that's when I had my biostats class. And so being able to collaborate with my colleagues and, them help me. And I was actually blessed to actually have one of my colleagues from undergrad who was actually in my program in grad school. So that was definitely a blessing as well. Because of course, it's good to be around people who know more than you. I think, that's an opportunity for growth as well. And as far as study the information, make sure you understand it, ask questions, quiz yourself. One of the things that was very big was the CHES, Certified Health Education Specialist exam. I was not able to take this exam. I am planning to take it soon. I actually found out I was selected for officer training school to become an officer in the United States Air Force when I was actually about to test for this. So time was kind of cut short for me, and I definitely had to hop on opportunity because this is my dream job. And so from people who I've spoken with, especially those that are in health education, has definitely benefited from this tremendously. And the National Academy of Sports Medicine, NASM. So I have a personal training certificate in this. And for me, fitness has always been like a passion of mine. So when I had the opportunity to really, after I graduated, I had the opportunity to have like a little downtime. I didn't, just have downtime. I basically worked towards the certification, and I started my own small business while I was actually applying for to become an officer. So I basically used the courses that I took from my grad school program, and I use my knowledge and stuff that I have when it comes to fitness and programming. And I definitely started my business. That was amazing. And apply it. I think that once you have all these tools and you're familiar with the information, you've asked questions, get out there and apply it if you can. Internship is a great opportunity for that. All right, so my experience, my BenU experience geared toward PHO, which is public health officer. So some of the critical public health skill sets that I've definitely encountered and have gained focuses on a lot of research and analytical skills, applying epidemiological methods, which, well, like I said, was not my strong suit, but I have had the opportunity these past few months to actually dig deep and to definitely help me grow in that area, and I'm still growing, so that's always a blessing. The coursework that I really focused on centered toward cultural competence, behavioral and social aspects of public health, health education methods, and biostatistics. So also one of the skills I think is very important is cultural competence. For me, when it came to getting to my new base, learning my people, I think the first thing you should focus on is building rapport. In my experience, that's been amazing. I think it's always good if you have all this knowledge of your job, but if you can't, work with your people and get to know them genuinely and actually learn about them, learn the skill set, learn their weaknesses, where they can potentially thrive in an environment with you being the leader, then ultimately sometimes you can have all these words of knowledge, but if the team is not, together, and that could definitely affect the mission and affect jobs being done. And in particular, in the Air Force, you don't see people let go in the Air Force because they're not competent of their job. Most people who are in the Air Force are let go because they don't have good decision making when it comes to how they treat people and how to talk to people. So cultural competence is at the top of my list when it comes to entering a new environment, getting to know my people, getting to know their strengths, weaknesses, all of that. So that's definitely a major key, especially when it came to the mental health during COVID-19. Cultural competence helped a ton because people are focusing on, getting through COVID-19, and by me being able to actually genuinely learn them and just know about them, their interests, their hobbies, helped tremendously when it came to leading them and them trusting me to lead them. So mental health was definitely a big one for a lot of, my flight, and definitely having that cultural competence was very important. And these pictures are pictures of me and my flight. I graduated from OTS. This was like last year. So this is definitely a great experience as well. All right, starting out in public health, be a sponge, soak up everything. And this is actually the step I'm in right now in my current career. Due to COVID-19, my public health officer course was pushed back to September. So as of now, I'm soaking up everything I can from those under me, airmen, to my highest leadership. That's very important when it comes to learning anything and everything, because you may know a lot, but it's always good to be able to learn more and talk to those who may know more than you. And what better people to talk to than the ones who actually do the job every day, which are the airmen. Find a mentor. I want to say that I have a mentor who focuses on, the actual public health career field in the Air Force, and also have a mentor when it comes to life in general, and then also just navigating my way through the Air Force. This has helped me tremendously when it's come to just growing and working through different, hurdles that life might throw at you. Take opportunities to lead if possible. I think that's the best way you can learn. You may not know everything, you may not even know where to start, but get out there, lead, take that leap of faith, and trust yourself. That's very important, to trust yourself, and you trust your knowledge, and trust the skill that you've built so far. Research is very important. In the Air Force, we have these documentations called AFI, which are the Air Force instruction. We also have AFMANs, which are Air Force manuals. These manuals, basically, the documentation focuses on what compliance and what standard in which we should be operating in our programs. So research is always good to research and ask questions as well, and be patient and diligent. Of course, like I said before, it's not easy, focusing on life in general, and then your career, and then having a family. I have a toddler, so thank God you guys can hear her. But yeah, being diligent, being patient, and staying the course. Like I said, this has been a 3 to 5 year goal of mine, and I have consistently, no matter what's come my way, been diligent, and lean on my husband and my village for support during this time. And I think that if you continue to be patient and you continue to be diligent, no matter what's thrown at you, take time for yourself. Self-care is very important, but also remain diligent, ask questions, reach out to your professors, everything. Then I think that you'll be fine. All right, so in summary, I discussed my current career. I discussed tips for an effective job search. I also discussed MPH, the course tips and certifications, my BenU experience geared towards career. And I've also focused on my career in relation to mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I also share with you advice in my career in public health. And this concludes our presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, definitely we'll get to it at the end of everybody else. And I'll jinx it, my daughter's actually crying now, so.
Thank you so much, Maya. We really appreciate it. And like Maya said, we will continue with questions at the end. If you have any questions, please feel free to jot them down in the chat as they come up. So moving right along, I will invite Erin to begin her presentation.
Okay, good evening. Can you hear me all right? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm Erin. I graduated August of 2020, and my current position is I'm an environmental health supervisor for Kane County Health Department, which is a local county health department in Kane County, Illinois. And how I found my current position, I actually looked through a job site that's specific to environmental health careers. It was called the Illinois Environmental Health Association. They have a webpage where they post jobs for all health department positions. So I was specifically looking for a supervisor role at the time, and that's how I found that position. And then tips that I have for effective job search, again, like the other two have said, Indeed, LinkedIn, Career Builder, Monster, websites, research specific companies, organizations you want to work for. A lot of times, again, those companies won't post those positions on the large job sites, so it's good to check in on the company websites. LinkedIn has a great job search, again, being very specific, if you're looking for a remote or hybrid, a certain area, LinkedIn is a great tool for job search. Again, networking is huge. Reach out to people you know. I would also highly recommend making connections through LinkedIn, looking at other public health professionals or making connections with people who work for organizations you want to work for. Again, most of the time, I would say people will accept your invitation. Again, it never hurts to know a lot of people. Now with events being back in person, I would recommend if you find a company or a webinar or seminar that's being presented on an area you want to work in, I'd also recommend going in person so you can, put a name to the face and get to meet people more, and then joining professional organizations. So there's a lot of public health organizations you can join and memberships. A lot of them have discounted rates for people who are students, graduate students that you can join. So that's another way to help effective with job search. And some of the courses that helped me the most in my position right now, community health analysis was a big one that definitely helped with researching, finding data from multiple websites, and then how to write reports. So with public health departments, we're doing like community health assessment plans, community health improvement plans. So we do a lot of science-based, lengthy write-ups, papers. So it's good to be able to do data analysis and be able to write, scientific-based papers, being very professional in your writing. Electives, I took public health grant writing, and that is also important in public health, especially health departments. A large portion of our budget is covered by getting grants, and we actually have a designated grant writer. So that class was helpful, teaching me how to learn how to apply for and write grants. Leadership and management is also a very important course. I currently do supervise staff in my position, so I am in our leadership/management team. And I found that class very helpful, just learning how to be a leader, how to manage people, how to manage yourself, and how to manage projects, time. And I find it helpful because at any point you might become a supervisor or manager at your position. So it's good to know how to lead staff. And how going to Benedictine helped my experience with public health. Definitely helped focus on professional aspects of writing and being able to analyze and interpret data. We worked with a group project, so definitely that's helpful. At any workplace, you're going to be working with people, coordinating on projects, so it's good to learn how to work with people. Collaboration is huge in the workplace. Many employers are looking for that, either collaboration within different departments. Like a county government, we have multiple departments. I collaborate with different departments and large projects we work in, or outside stakeholders, internal stakeholders. So collaboration is huge, being able to do that effectively. The intern capstone project is definitely also very helpful. I would also recommend to people maybe try to look in an internship outside your comfort zone. It's good to get experience in a lot of different areas because public health is such a vast and wide career choice and option, that it's good to be getting experience in many different career paths. And also your internship will help give you a good preview of what a typical workday could look like, in a work environment. With health inequities and mental health, so working for a local health department, I was kind of in the thick of things with COVID. I did a lot of outside tasks outside my normal position. So I did anywhere from, I had to become a certified contact tracer. We did a lot of just-in-time training. I was part of our incident command team, so we went into ICS. That's for emergency response. A lot of times you'll be doing FEMA training, helping with the local police, fire departments, hospitals. So we noticed even in our own workforce, we had many inequities. We were as a whole ready for the technology side. So we had to do a lot to get to the technology part because we were forced to work from home and we weren't ready for that. So we had issues with that. We had a lot of our staff were working 7 days a week, 12 plus hours a day. We were answering emails 2, 3 in the morning. So it was hard to find, a good shift of helping people with everything going on with COVID, but then also keeping your mental sanity at the same time. Just finding people for clinics was difficult. We did a lot of mass vaccination clinics, and it took a lot of time and planning. And then a big area we noticed inequities was, I'll call it the white collar versus blue collar jobs. So many people who had white collar jobs, people had options to work from home versus people who, are in blue collar jobs, typical like restaurant workers or people worked in construction, truck drivers. They didn't have the choice to work from home. Their jobs, a lot of times physically, you can't, just sit behind a computer all day. So we had to deal with a lot of that inequities and helping people with benefits and getting, paid time off and helping them navigate the pandemic. But I would say the biggest inequity we found was technology. So people, it led to some groups of people that excelled during the pandemic, and then it exposed a lot of issues with technology, just people, being able to do their jobs and or people who lost their jobs because of technology. Then again, my advice is kind of similar to what other people said. Don't be afraid to try new things, new career paths, different organizations you may not think of in the traditional sense of public health. A lot of companies you may not think of actually do work in public health a lot. Make connections, reach out to other professionals. Another big tip I would say, because in my current position, I also do recruitment. I do help hire staff. So I've been on both sides of the interviewing people. If you ever leave a job, even if it's just a temporary position or internship, never leave on a bad note. You never know when you're going to need a former supervisor to give you a good review. I just actually had that happen recently. I had an employee who worked for me 2 years ago who is in Florida now, and I got a call from an organization for a recommendation for them. So even if the job is terrible or your boss is terrible, just again, always leave graciously from a position. Because again, supervisors can definitely help put in a good word for you. And then I would also say keep up with current events and never stop learning. When you go in for interviews, this is another thing I noticed from people who interview with us. Make sure you research the company or organization you're working for. We ask them, what do you know about us? A lot of people get stumped on that question. They can't tell us one thing about our organization, but yet they want to work for us. So it shows to us like, you don't really care to work there, you didn't do a lot of research. So you can easily Google search any company. Again, I'm not saying you have to know 10-year history, but at least be aware of what's going on with that company. Are they doing a big project? Are they trying to secure a new stakeholder? Just kind of never stop learning and keep yourself, up to date with current events. And then that's just my contact information. I'm fine with, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's my work email, work phone. So again, if you're interested in health departments or environmental health, never be afraid to reach out. It's a small world. We know a lot of people throughout the state or other states that if you are looking for work, we can definitely, point you in the right direction.
Thank you so much, Erin, for sharing. I really liked your point about keeping up with current events, because even in the current position that I have, that's part of the reason why I was able to get my position. So thank you so much for sharing that information. We are going to move along to our next presentation. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to jot them down in the chat. So I'm going to turn it over to Maria to share her presentation.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Maria Sanchez. I am an alumni of Benedictine. I actually am part of the class of 2020, that special class that was waiting to graduate in person, and everything moved to like pretty much virtual, and it was kind of like a downer. So, but we survived, we adapted. It was a nice virtual graduation that Benedictine did for us. So yeah, I got my Master of Public Health from Benedictine. I also got my certificate in epidemiology. I'm currently a clinical research manager. I actually started off with the University of New Mexico Health Sciences Center as a research coordinator, and I just got promoted recently to a clinical research manager. Next slide. All right, so I'm just going to go over my experience with Benedictine. It was such a great experience. This is a really great program. My advice is, if you are interested in epidemiology and biostatistics, definitely try to take courses that align with your interests, especially taking advantage of the research methods courses, the data analysis courses. After I graduated, I actually found out there were data analysis courses being offered. I think they were taught for the first time by Dr. Ho. I can't remember my other instructor. And so I took every opportunity to take them. I needed the experience, and I was really interested in data analysis. So I was really happy that that was able to be worked out. Also, my public health internship really helped me gain experience and background in public health. Prior to getting accepted in Benedictine, I didn't really have much of a public health background. And so it really helped my resume to get that experience. I did a lot of outreach work, collaborating, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Everything was so new, and it was a really great experience. Your public health internship class, the capstone, it's more than just a grader class. It really adds on experience. My other advice is to definitely participate in the public health student organization. It gives you great opportunities to be a leader. You get great networking as well. You can connect with your peers. They have, especially with the diversity of everyone, they could definitely help guide you through everything and where they work. And it was just a really great experience overall. I had such a fun time with the public health student organization, and it can also boost your resume. Leadership in the workplace is a big thing these days. So having that leadership background really helped. The leadership team on PHSO, they did a lot of outreach, just trying to get this conference put together. So that really helped me with my current position. You can go to the next slide. My experience with searching for a job, I'm just going to go over my experience and also some advice. So I actually applied to 50 or more different job postings, and it got pretty tedious. It actually took a year to even get one job offer, which is with the University of New Mexico. And over that time, I only had 3 job interviews. So for a year, I was starting to lose hope. And then I got that one job offer, and it was like the greatest thing ever. And I jumped on the opportunity. And it has been such a wonderful thing for me. And so what really helped me through that was to pretty much accept rejection. Just learn how to accept it, pick yourself up when you do get a rejection, and just continue applying and continue to just persevere through all of those rejections, because it happens. And you know what? One day you will find that your dream job. You might want to consider adapting. If you're looking for jobs and it's just not working where you live, maybe consider moving to another city or state. I moved from Rhode Island to New Mexico, but I grew up in New Mexico, so we were kind of already searching to move here. But if you don't have family or you're not tied to a state, definitely consider that. if you can't leave your city or state, definitely consider trying to go with an entry position. There are a lot of jobs right now that are entry positions, and it may not be the most ideal, but even just starting from the bottom and just moving up could really help you get to your dream position. Ultimately, don't give up. Really just keep trying to just push through, even through all those like applications and interviews. It gets tedious, but it's really rewarding near the end. I use LinkedIn, which is a networking website that the other individuals, the other alumni had mentioned. It's good to get connected with your colleagues. I also use like LinkedIn, Indeed, Career Builder, Monster. What I also did, I double checked the job postings with the current company that I was applying to, because sometimes job postings are outdated and you might actually be surprised. Some of them have been like posted for a year. So definitely double check and just, see what, how long the position has been open for. It may be closed. I actually search for specific job titles. If you're looking more at like the university level, a lot of universities use like research coordinator, research assistant. I didn't put on there, but research associate, research technician, research manager, research scientist. And they do use biostatisticians and some epidemiologists, especially at the University of New Mexico. I've noticed that on the state and the local level, public health analyst, biostatistician, epidemiologist, and health educator are really big job titles for those specific employers. So definitely think about the employer that you're applying to, because there's a lot of different terms involved. And you can go to the next slide. So what I currently do is I do help with managing 2 different research studies. With the University of Mexico, it is a really big research university. I'm with a really good research team, and this is actually where I wanted to be. We collaborate with our UNM health system, with our first choice clinics here in Albuquerque, and with the RAND Corporation. And it's actually been a really good experience getting kind of thrown into that, not only just research, but also with collaborating with a big organization like RAND. They're based out of Los Angeles. They have so many research projects as we do, and we collaborate on other projects too with them. Our focus is on individuals who misuse substances and have mental health disorders. And most of our study patients, they are homeless or they lack access to healthcare and resources. And I can't really go into the details because we're actually currently in like the clinical trials. So I can't really discuss anything about that, about the studies, but we are currently working with individuals to see, how we could treat their substance use. COVID-19, something that I have noticed has really impacted these individuals' lives. It caused a lot of reduced job availability. They also had a lot of stress from the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of family members have passed away. And so that did cause a lot of trauma, especially like PTSD. And so, just trying to like get assistance to these patients has been definitely a struggle. So that's kind of like some of the work that I'm doing right now. We are currently hiring at the University of New Mexico, especially in our department. I know that there is a job, I guess tomorrow, I'm not a part of, but if you do live in the UNM area, please consider looking at our job postings. I'm with the Division of Epidemiology, Biostatistics, and Preventive Medicine. So if you want to be a part of our research project, we would love to have you. And that's it. Definitely do reach out to me on LinkedIn. I actually follow Karen. So if you link with her, you can definitely search for me there. But thank you all.
Thank you, Maria. I really liked your point about persevering, because I know one thing I'm nervous about is the job search, because I don't have as much experience in public health as well. So just your note about persevering despite not getting your first application to be positive was something that really struck me. So thank you so much for that. If you have any questions for her, you are welcome to put that in the chat. And we are going to move on to our next presentation, which is with Olivia. Give me one moment while I set that up. Okay, Olivia, I turn it over to you.
Right. First of all, hi everybody. I just want to preface this by saying I'm a little under the weather, so I apologize if there is some sneezing happening. But just to dive into this, so hi, my name is Olivia Phillips, and I'm excited to go into my journey with you. Next slide. So here's just some fast facts about me. While I was at Benedictine, I majored in, or I pursued my degree in public health. And then I decided to add on the MBA. So I actually did the dual program. This is a build up from my undergrad degree. I went to DePaul and majored in, fell into health sciences really. And that could be a story for another day if anybody has questions, but fell into health sciences. And so that's really their public health program. And then I just fell in love with it essentially. So decided to pursue my MBA or MPH. And then I also felt that the MBA would kind of really enhance my professional opportunities. I've been working in kind of the health industry landscape-ish since high school. Always knew I really wanted to go into healthcare, just didn't know if it would be direct patient care, non-direct patient care, but here I am now. And so my high school at the time allowed me to complete a CNA program, and that was really kind of a first professional introduction into this health-based world industry. And then lastly, so I actually am very shy about sharing this, but I thought it would be relevant. What really drove me to pursuing healthcare was my personal experiences. I was diagnosed with a chronic condition from birth, and I managed it through my teen years. And with that being said, I would watch my family really navigate the healthcare system. I would see health inequities, health disparities. Now we have those terms, right? But I would really see that navigation, and what that did for me was really propel my interest in being like, hey, I see these things happening. I don't necessarily know why, but what I do know is that I want to help make sure nobody else has to go through that. And so those are just three quick kind of facts about me and how I kind of really came full circle into public health. Next slide. So I will start off first with talking about my experience at Benedictine and how it really prepped me for my career in public health and just my career in general. I couldn't actually remember my classes fully. Like I remembered the classes, but I couldn't remember all the titles to them. And I just, yeah, my memory is just terrible right now. However, what I will say is that because I did public health undergrad, what I really thought at Benedictine was that I felt these expanded on knowledge that I already had. So when the previous alum just discussed kind of the classes, especially like cultural competence, research methods, epidemiology, like I had taken those, which I'm grateful for, and I had that knowledge. So these really continued to drive home frameworks and kind of gave more in-depth education for me. So on the other hand, because I pursued the MBA aspect of it, that's where I saw myself really learning. Like I learned from the MPH, but then I was like, whoa, this world of just general business is so different, especially when you've been in public health for so long. And what I've really liked about the dual degree program is that honestly, you do have to know business concepts to really propel yourself in public health wherever you go. Accounting, for example, that relates to grant budgets, just those kinds of little pieces you really don't think about until you're like, hey, this is really helping me. The next piece of this, and I apologize, my dog decided to get the zoomies in the background, so apologies for that. The next piece that really helped me my success at Benedictine was networking. So speaking with classmates, faculty, and really using this as an opportunity for me to continue to seek other opportunities. So I know in certain classes, I was able to, when we did like our discussion boards, I was able to see like, you know, what other folks were doing. And so I would reach out to the ones that were very interesting to me, right? Second, with faculty, I would reach out. So she's no longer here, but Elizabeth Squires, I reached out to her and we kind of talked, and she would pull me into little projects here and there. And then lastly, so I actually use my time as a grad student to look for fellowship opportunities. So if you want to know kind of the difference between an internship and fellowship, I feel like from my perspective is a fellowship is much more immersive and intensive a little bit. And I that's my understanding, but honestly, I think you could just really say they're parallel. But in this case, the program that I ended up doing was the Albert Schweitzer Fellowship. It is specifically for health and medicine students to go into community service, and you build your own project. You work in communities that are underrepresented or may just need some support, right? May not be the ones that always get the infrastructure. So I feel like I was like one of the first students to do that for Benedictine, and now it opened the door for a lot more students to be in the Albert Schweitzer Fellowship Program. So I would encourage you to do it. It was a great opportunity, and it actually really helped with like my resume and CV. So I would say that. And lastly, staying involved. So when volunteer opportunities like this one, for example, comes along, really take into consideration, if you can, your time to actually do the opportunity, because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you may come across that may help you be able to navigate your next step. So I really would take advantage of volunteer opportunities as you can and as you see fit for your life and your schedule. And I really feel like that sets you up for success in your kind of career and path. Next slide. So I'll just give a brief overview of where I've worked. I actually started from undergrad. My first job was at the National American Academy of Pediatrics. I started out as a life support assistant, and then I was promoted to a learning management specialist, which essentially, if you think about a learning management system, it's really just where folks get like continuing education credits from, or just you continue your education in general. I'll go back before that and say that when I would strongly recommend interning or getting some type of experience, because it really did help me land like a first big kid job, so to speak, or a first job that I was interested in. And so I utilize LinkedIn much, and I'll talk about that later, but I definitely utilize LinkedIn for this position. And also I utilized Idealist as well, applied. And so that was kind of my first one. Second one, I migrated to the Illinois chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, which if you think about an umbrella, national handles like national and like international initiatives, and the chapter is solely for the state. So the chapter really gave me my first introduction into like grassroots work, my writing my first grant, and those types of activities. And if you're interested in kind of that grassroots work, I would really look for state level organizations. After I recently just started as the manager of equity initiatives at Matter, and this is really my first position that I discovered that there is a new pathway in public health outside of just working for those state and local agencies or kind of those traditional routes. And if you want to go to the next slide, I can kind of go into what Matter is and discuss my role. So Matter, it's a community of healthcare innovators. This is just a little spiel. who aspire to heroic change, who embrace collaboration, who believe we can improve life and lives, and we're here to do something that matters. So if you want to go to the next slide. So essentially Matter is a healthcare incubator, a startup incubator. With that, if you think about it in an example, you have a cake that you have put together, you put in the work, you follow the directions, you would come to us and we'd be like the oven. So we would help you kind of navigate, support you in any ways, provide you resources, and then hopefully you move on and you become acquired, or you move on and you're bought, for consumption, so to speak, for the cake reference. So the mission at Matter is to accelerate the pace of change. And if you want to go to the next slide, we do that in 3 ways. So it's, of course, startup incubation. So basically, it's working with entrepreneurs. The whole concept of Matter is working with entrepreneurs. So that's our startup side. Then we have a community side where we do programs and work with industry execs. And then lastly, our corporate innovation side is really working with our partners. And if you want to go to the next slide, I'll just share my. So again, I'm the manager of equity initiatives there. And really what I do is working on developing thoughtful programs to drive Matters work with underrepresented entrepreneurs, basically in healthcare. And with our hope in doing that is to help advance health equity. And I put the link in there so folks can learn more. Next slide. So the career tips that I would give is just really be a lifelong learner. My advice to you is, after this kind of formal education route, continue to soak up what you can. And because I'm a firm believer, the more you know, the more that can help you and kind of help you navigate where you'd like to go. The second part is, I would say, expanding your horizons. The traditional route isn't what you always want to pursue or what we think about the traditional route. And an MPH can really unlock so many doors for you, like in the tech world, the arts, or any other area. So make sure to not limit yourself and really seek opportunities outside of the norm, or what you may think is the norm for an MPH. And lastly, I do feel like who you know does matter. Networking is so important. I think we've heard that from all the speakers. Getting on LinkedIn, going to these alum chats, and really using that to your advantage. Next slide. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. If you want to go to the next slide, there's my LinkedIn there. Please feel free to drop in, connect with me on LinkedIn, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Olivia. Really loved your presentation. And I liked your piece about going outside the traditional route, because I tend to be someone who focuses on what is the norm. So being open to other horizons, which I think everyone's kind of touched on today, something super important. So thank you for that. All right. So now we're going to open it up for you guys to ask any questions that you might have for any of our alumni. You can either enter it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask them. So we have one question from Catherine. She was asking, how did you find your internship?
I can answer. So I was the person who was able to use my job space because we had separate projects happening that would be outside of kind of my normal day-to-day activities. So I did utilize that, in which case I worked with pediatricians at the time. So I was working on a direct project with a pediatrician, and they kind of became my preceptor and really kind of helped me navigate my internship, in which I learned way more so from them on that project, and it kind of enhanced soft skills. So I would say, if you do use your job, it is true to make sure that it is outside of your normal job responsibilities, so that way you still feel like you're getting something out of it.
I can add on to that as well. I actually got mine through Benedictine, so that's another avenue. In case you're having troubles, you can always contact. I think Mary was the one that assisted me in case you ever need to go that route as well.
I did my internship through my employer. Again, I did a different area than what I worked at because I work full time, so I couldn't really go to another organization. But then also somebody had asked about additional certificates other than the MPH. I would say like it doesn't really benefit somewhat. It depends where you're going. Certificates can definitely help, but a lot of times, again, like what the previous speakers touched base on, you look at a job description, it's a wish list. So they might say they want a certified epidemiologist. Well, maybe you have a degree in epidemiology, but you don't have a certificate. A lot of times those jobs, they won't turn you down because a lot of times they say, okay, within 1 year of hire date, you can get that certificate. And a lot of times they pay for it too, and the training. So yeah, it doesn't hurt to have additional certificates, but don't prevent that. Again, don't let that prevent you from applying to jobs if you don't have them.
Another question that we had was if there was any advice for career changers. So how to tie in past experience in a different career to public health.
I will definitely say that my current job is a career change for me because it's still in the realm of health, but it's in healthcare tech. It's in tech, and so that it's a little bit of a learning curve. So what I would say is the skills that you have learned, specifically like grant writing, and I want to say there's a few other ones. I'm so sorry, I'm so foggy, but it can happen. And I think if you don't limit yourself when you're applying. I was like Maya, and I had somebody kind of review my resume, help me with that. And that was really one of like the stepping stones. I'm so sorry, I'm like losing my train of thought. So I'll just hand it over to somebody else because sick.
Right.
Actually,
So,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to add the same thing. So I know when I was basically trying to apply for, being a public health officer, public health in the Air Force is so broad. So you're literally learning like every type of, part of public health there is, honestly. And working with a professional that worked on my resume helped me so much because there were skill sets that I didn't even, I knew I had, but I didn't think they were that important, but they actually were. So definitely working with maybe another professional who can actually pull all your skill sets that you've built along the way that can definitely play a role in switching careers is very helpful.
So I agree with both Olivia and Maya. So my background was actually veterinary medicine. I was actually in vet school before I decided it wasn't for me, and I made the switch to the MPH program, which it falls under One Health, but it's more of the clinical side. And so it seemed very different, but once you got to the meat of it, there were tangible skills. And the same thing with what Maya and Olivia said, having someone review your resume, because I was terrible at it. I'm still not great. I've gotten better, but you need an extra pair of eyes on it. So that's another tip. But no matter what your previous field was, you have tangible skills. You just have to be able to reword them and basically sell it to your new position is my main thing, because my current position now on paper, it looked very intimidating, but there were plenty of things that I was able to take from my previous career in veterinary medicine to my research career to my government work and put it towards the position I'm at now. So that's another thing.
I have a question. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so one thing I would say is that I've used the career services for Benedictine, and to me, it was very effective in just actually having my resume, my applications being reviewed, and then I went to an outside person to have my resume reviewed, and they were like, well, your resume is pretty good. Like, they really didn't recommend any changes. So if you want to save money, I would definitely say like use the school resources, because that's free, even for the cover letters. and then definitely use outside source and then spend the money. But I do have two questions. So my first question is, when you mentioned about, epidemiology careers, and I know I have looked at different jobs in that area, and they often ask about, like that software, like SAS. Is that like a really like a great requirement in which like you should definitely have knowledge in it, or is that something where, where you get on the job and then they would then end up showing you how to use that type of software? And then my next question is, how do I go about with networking? Because I know, like, you can, go on LinkedIn. I guess my issue is just like, knowing how to reach out and like what to say, or like, do you just like send them a message in your LinkedIn? Because I've tried reaching out to like other organizations where they had like this mentorship program, but I just haven't heard back. So I'm just like kind of confused as to like how to find a mentor, because right now I'm towards the end with doing my capstone, and it's like, where you're at that point where you're like, okay, well, you know what you want to do, but then you still don't know what you want to do. But it is, I don't know, I guess I'm kind of like confused.
I just wanted to chime in about your question about like the SAS software. So in my organization, we do work with statisticians. They're actually doing the analysis for our research project. What I've been able to pick up from them, some have statistics degrees, and I think we have like one or two that have public health degrees. And I think it's good to definitely, while you're trying to search for a position, to build up your SAS knowledge, especially maybe taking extra courses. I know that you can probably get some to take some courses through Benedictine, but definitely try to utilize other resources like Coursera if you want to go into that specific like career path. And the reason why I suggest that is just because I guess with our employer, we do look for individuals who have that experience. You do learn on the job experience with data analysis, but it also helps give you that background if you already have that as well. I can't remember what your second question was. So I'll let someone else answer that
It was
if they
about
have any.
networking and just how to,
Yeah.
I guess, how to outreach in that area. Like, I guess I'm just kind of, I know I'm kind of like a reserved person. So I guess coming out of that box, or like, how do you guys go about it? Do you just send emails, or do you try to go to like networking events? I'm just, I guess, a bit lost.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. I am very much introverted. So networking is hard, but what I found helpful for me was to join specific groups. So for example, on LinkedIn, I'm in like a women's and public health group and like a Black Professionals of Chicago group, like just little starting out small with like little groups and kind of going to maybe if they're having a webinar or something like that. And it's not necessarily in person, so a little bit easier. But you find a group of like-minded people, so it doesn't feel as daunting. I didn't take it as it feeling daunting because everybody was kind of on the same page. But then when you are, so let's say you go to like an in-person event, and maybe it's not necessarily specific to public health. What I try to do is, if there's like a speaker or just like a session that you liked, I try to talk to the speaker, like just to introduce myself. And then I maybe try to pick like one person in the room who maybe asked a thought-provoking question, like starting very small and bite-sized chunks to kind of do networking. Because I think folks aren't very clear, especially if you aren't very outgoing, or you kind of have social anxiety like I do a little bit. Those little tidbits will really kind of help you network and get to know other people.
I just wanted to build on what Maria said. So if you need some experience with SAS or SAS, they also offer a SAS certification. You can download SAS for free through Benedictine. It does cost money, but in my experience with the government work, at least from when I was searching for jobs initially, at least in my state, and then a few that were remote out of state, they wanted SAS experience. It was not negotiable. You had to have it. And a lot of them were looking for that SAS certification. So that's something you could look into if you have time. That would be really good to put on your resume.
Another question that we had was regarding profiles or resumes. Were there any things that you did include or did not include on your profiles or resumes from a past career?
For my resume, so the way that I tailored it is, I have like a project section that I never thought to like put on there, but like special projects that maybe show like your project management skills or like community service, like volunteering, like something that can really like stand out, you know. So I have a project section, and then I kind of tailored it. And if anybody wants to talk, I'll put my info in the chat, but I kind of tailored it into like relevant experience and then past experience. And then you have like articles and everything. So basically I put what I thought or thought the employer would like to see, or what would be kind of, you know, interesting or intriguing, and then left kind of the other things at the bottom, like that weren't necessarily tailored to that job but still had skills. So that's kind of like the structure and formatting. And then the second piece that I used was really keeping it to like 3 or 4 bullet points. Like my resume is not, I'm not one of those one pagers, because I just don't have that. And I don't like when people give that advice, because I was like, you want to share your experience, you know, but at the same time, making sure that you really hone in on what you did, and so they get the point. So you don't have 6 or 7 bullet points that basically say the same thing. So it really causes you to kind of think about, you know, what your role was and what are those kind of top highlight moments.
So I agree with Olivia. I know for like my section and everything, I definitely highlighted a lot of like projects that I had I led, especially because I know with the Air Force, I mean, again, I think that your resume, you can tell your resume to the job you're applying for as well. I know depending on, so my husband, he's also like he has a GS position, so he works for the Army on the civilian side. So with that, it's definitely still different from a like civilian resume. So I would definitely tailor your resume to the job you're actually applying for, because I know with the Air Force, there was like a requirement, you know, it couldn't be more than like, you know, like 2 pages or a page. So definitely pay attention to those details, but definitely include those things that that the job is asking for, the skill set that the job is asking for, and more so the skill that you actually possess that the job is asking for.
And I will like to add, I recently had someone on like someone who applied for a position at my current job, and they actually reached out to me on LinkedIn to kind of talk about the company and maybe what they were looking for. So I'm fine with sharing information, and I know that may seem it also can seem like intimidating to do that, but sometimes it's actually helpful. So if, let's say you have found somebody, it doesn't even have to be at that company, but let's say you did your resume and you found someone who has maybe a similar or like adjacent job that you are interested in, have them look at your resume. Ask them, you know, questions like, or ask them to give you advice so you can land that position. And or even at the company that you're looking for, just find someone who, you know, and message them. And you never know, because 9 times out of 10 someone is really open to helping you. So that's just something that actually popped up that I wanted to share.
Okay, I think we have time for just one more question. Someone had asked, is there any way to learn GIS experience?
I work with GIS daily in my position. So I would say the best way to get experience at is local governments. They do offer internships to work in GIS. They have GIS interns. Main departments to look for would be a building department or community development department. But yeah, check local governments. Those organizations definitely have GIS internships and job positions available.
Yeah, I agree with Erin. My last position in the health department, we used it daily. So you'll get used to it if you get an internship or position there really quickly.
All right, I want to say thank you again. Thank you to each of our presenters this evening. I know this has been wonderful for me personally. I always enjoy hearing from alums and kind of seeing what you guys are doing currently. So thank you for being here this evening. Also wanted to say thank you to you all for attending today. This concludes the session for today. A preview for tomorrow, we'll be discussing careers and internships in public health. And then you are welcome to register for that in the email that was sent earlier this week. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great night.